Hi, Scott Orland with Cinema Magazine. There's this new movie coming out called Detroit, and part of the essence of the film is the music. And who's the man responsible for the music? Questlove. Let me ask you, what specifically about the story kind of inspired you to start working on the music?
For me, as a fan of the Motown period and the area from which it comes from, I'm so steeped into the traditions of Detroit. Not to mention a lot of the albums that I created on my own. Some of them were done in Detroit, Michigan, because it's such an inspiration. So when presented with the challenge of recording a song for this movie, it was an 8-minute roller coaster. Usually with Oscar songs and with songs of award caliber for Golden Globes or whatever, usually it's like a perfectly wrapped 3.5-minute song, neatly wrapped in a bow. But because of the intense filmmaking of Detroit, of what it is, this wound up being more of a therapy session for the Roots than just a song,
Let me ask you that, too, because so many times when we watch a movie, there's a particular moment that it's kind of an inspirational point. Mm-hmm. And, as composing a song, I don't know, how much did you know specifically about historically what happened? Was there something in a visual or in a piece of dialogue that kind of gave you the inspiration?
Well, as a cinephile, I'm an extreme. Extreme is sort of underputting it. Fan of Catherine Bigelow's film work, so I knew what I was in for. I knew that she's a gritty, in-your-face filmmaker, and so she purposely gave me. She didn't even have a title. She's like, I worked on a new film. I don't have a title. I don't want to give you any history of it. I just want you to sit and watch it, and then I'm gonna give you 24 hours to process it. And I was like, whoa. Well, I know Zero Dark 30 and Blue Steel and Hurt Locker and why would I need 24 hours to process it? Like, why can't I talk to you? She's like, trust me, you'll need 24 hours to process it. And sure enough, I was not expecting for a film to move me to tears or leave me breathless or that sort of thing, but literally the song just started writing itself. And when I went home, I just sat in silence for 3 hours, and once I composed myself to figure out what I just watched, it came. And she called me the next day and like, so how do you feel? And I was like, well, how honest can I be? Like, she's like, just be brutally honest. Like, nothing will offend me. I was just like, I'm so angry right now. She's like, yes. That's what I want. I want anger. And I told her, I said, I tried to give her an out. I was like, look, like, this might be an 8-minute song, like, because I think it's rare for anyone in the hip-hop field to really emote a three-dimensional human side. It's really hard to convey real emotions. And I said, this might be therapy, and less a song and more about therapy. Are you cool with that? And she's like, yes, give me everything. And it was a hard song to do because the film is 1967, so we had to limit ourselves to the technology of that period. We found a studio in Brooklyn whose oldest equipment was like 1964, and we're a 12-man group, and we had 10 horn players and 8 strings and 2 vocalists on 8 tracks, and we had to do it 2 hours in a row, like straight over. So it was arduous, and it was hard and intense, but we learned a lot about ourselves.
Let me take you back to 1967. I don't think you were around at that particular point in time, but some of the music of that time is just timeless. It's lived on forever.
Yes.
What was the music of that particular time? Who were the artists? Was there a song from that particular period of which Detroit is set that just gets you going, that just is musically inspiring?
I mean, again, I consider 67 it's really America's turning point, because you also got to understand that 67 gave us Sgt. Pepper's, 67 gave us Our Experience by Jimi Hendrix, 67 would start the seeds of inspiration that, that would start the Smile Sessions for Brian Wilson. So, it was the summer of love, or it's supposed to be. But, in Detroit, a metamorphosis was happening, and then suddenly Motown became more message-centered. And I guess with the inclusion of Norman Whitfield to the Motown staff, he was putting more message-conscious songs into the mix, using the Temptations as a perfect catapult to the political charged time of that era. So I'll say that a lot of Norman Whitfield's work with the Temptations kind of brought on that paradigm shift that would later lead to Marvin Gaye's What's Going On, that would later lead to Stevie Wonder wanting independence to express himself, and that would lead to the 70s, to where Motown really started to flourish artistically. So I'll say that Norman Whitfield coming to Motown in 66, 67, and really changing, it became less about a suit and tie, neat presentation, and became more roll your arms up and terra firma, get your hands dirty sort of work. So,
50 years later, Questlove would do a music for a movie set in 1967. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
Really, congratulations on the song.
for having me.
And this is Scott Orland. Until next time.